It is 6 o'clock, so I'm going to call the select board meeting of Tuesday, October 27th to order. And the first item is approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'll just draw your attention to two things. There is an item 13C, a civic life grant for elections, and Kathleen will cover, and our potential executive session. Kathleen's just it's just an informative thing, and Kathleen's going to cover that with an email. Are there any other requested changes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda as drafted with those two changes, signify with thumbs up.
Hold on, Dan is gone.
Lost Dan.
And it looked like he was having some technical difficulty. Chris,
Yes.
would you please resend
Is
Lindsay
that?
her meeting link, or should I just send her the general one?
Now we have Lindsay also.
Yeah, let me, I'll resend the link to her.
She's on.
Oh, she is. Okay.
Found it.
So she is.
Sorry.
Okay.
We're just covering the agenda, and we've made two minor changes, a 13C about an elections grant, and we do not need an executive session. Any other requested changes? Well done. All in favor signify approval of the agenda with those two minor changes with a thumbs up. Are you good with it, Dan? Oh, can't hear us. We do have a quorum though, so we'll move.
I'm gonna need that phone back, Michelle, Sue.
We can hear you, Dan.
Somebody maybe just type Dan, we can hear him, but so maybe he just needs to turn up his speaker. So next is citizen comments. If there's anybody who's on for something that's not covered in our agenda, Farhad?
We didn't approve the minutes yet.
Oh yeah, I'm all thrown off. Thank you. Next is approval of the minutes of our October 13th regular select board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any requested changes to those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as drafted, signify with a thumbs up. Okay. Before we go to citizen comments, Victor let me know that he was unable to make the meeting this evening, so he will not be joining us. And Nick's plane is running late. He'll join us when he can. He was going to join us as soon as it landed out west somewhere. Forget where he was flying, but he's headed out on a job, and once it landed, he was going to join us. So are there any citizens with their hands raised, Chris, to comment on something that's not in the agenda?
Brian, at this time, we have one raised hand from Judy Weiger-Groves.
Okay.
Judy, go ahead, please.
Evening, Judy. You're muted right now. Judy? There you go. Oh, there you go.
Am I
You're good.
okay? Okay, just a quick thing. And I think Kathleen passed this information on to you. An update about the airport. And one, the airport is currently in compliance. There are no safety concerns, as shared with me by, oh my gosh, Cisco Herrera, the airport manager. So that's one. And two, this is kind of a different thread, but they are keeping the area outside the fence line, vegetation free, using two products similar to Roundup. And that's of concern to me, and anybody else who gets their water from the aquifer that lies under the airport. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Yeah, it sounds like the first item supports Act 250, siding with the town's position. The second one is interesting in that, with that being a watershed area, I would think they would have some restrictions on spraying, so.
Correct.
Brian, I've also, it's Kathleen, I've relayed this information to our water department and DPW staff.
Okay, thanks. All right, was there anybody else, Chris?
Not at this time, Brian.
Okay, then if you could invite Chief Hanley in for local emergency management update.
Hi,
Evening, Chief.
here I am again. Well, we expected a fall increase in COVID, and we're getting it. We got a 21% increase in COVID in the region. Essentially, if you look at the ACCD travel map, you see there's really no place you can go without quarantining. All of southern New England is either red or orange. All of New Hampshire is either red or orange, and 11 counties in Maine are that way. And everything pretty much south of us in New York is red as well. So that's a little disturbing. Just looking at some of the numbers, they've gone up 4 and 5 times in some of these southern New England states. The recent outbreak we saw in central Vermont was attributed to people going out of state in red areas, returning without quarantining, and then coming back and infecting others in small groups. So it wasn't actually infections going on during a hockey game. It was gatherings and things afterwards. So we need to keep that in mind as we're all planning travel perhaps during the holiday. Middlebury's numbers are still pretty low. They haven't changed in many weeks. It's still at 9 aggregate since March, which is good. And I think we're getting a lot of compliance here within our community. At least I've seen that anyway in stores and things, which is, it's good to see. The college is fairly stable. They're up to about 10,000 tests so far. No new cases, no present cases. They have taken action against 27 students and dismissed them. And they've had 98 disciplinary cases that they've verified at the college. So it's really good that they're staying on top of this as well. And the students are doing pretty good. Myself and Mike Leiden, as emergency management directors for our respective agencies, have been meeting with the folks at the Eastview and the Lodge to make sure that their COVID practices are up to speed. And we had our final meeting today. They'll be adjusting some of their plans to deal with everything from fatalities to how to deal with media and that kind of stuff. So we've been working along with that for a couple of weeks now. Other than that, we're just trying to encourage folks to wear the masks. We put out a bunch of tips for Halloween. We'll restate them all as we get maybe toward Friday. We'll put a special Halloween bulletin edition out or something, just to let people know that there's ways to do it and do it safely. And that's where we stand today.
Okay, Chief, thank you. Are there any questions, Chief? Those are some good tips on the Halloween that are coming out, so hopefully people are reading them. Rod.
So Chief, the 21% spike is in our area, or all the red and yellows you're mentioning?
In the general region, New England, New York, around us.
Okay, it's not us, right?
Not in Vermont, no. Although we did have the first time since the pandemic in 1 week, all 14 counties had positive cases.
Yep.
That's not happened before. So it's kind of cropping up in all corners of the state.
We just have to be mindful, I guess.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chief. Chris, if we could invite Dana in for her presentation on the contract for website design, redesign. Brian? Yes, Dan.
Hey, okay, I was just gonna ask, it'd be nice if everybody who spoke, if we could see them, and Dana came on, so that's great. I think it's very comfortable for me to see faces, so I appreciate
Yeah.
that. Thanks, Dana.
It looks like I have a lot of backlight, so I don't know how well you can see me, but I'm happy to be here to the extent that I am. So the library, I've been wanting to redesign and update the website for a while, and then in the spring, we realized how necessary it was. Obviously, when the building is closed, the website is the library, and we realized in addition to it not being as seamless and effective and pleasant an experience for our users as we would like it to be, there are some issues on the back end that we have just because it's so old, we don't have as much control over a lot of the organization as we would like. So I've met with 4 potential vendors and we got quotes from 3 of them. And I'd like to move forward with the guy that we worked with initially and who currently does our web work actually, who's wonderful and we have a good relationship with him. His quote was kind of in the middle of the 3. He gave us a discount since we are a nonprofit. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the scope of work or the proposal, but I'm asking that the select board approves Jackson Whelan's proposal to redesign our website for the amount of $4,800, which we have budgeted for in the our information technology capital budget.
Coming out of this last year's budget?
Coming out of we have excess funds in our, or leftover funds in our capital budget for information technology.
Right, so it's, you have the funds already reserved.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Questions of Dana?
What?
I'm asking if any of the board members have
Oh.
questions.
So are they just redesigning the website or are they going to be maintaining it? Is that an ongoing maintenance?
They'll also be maintaining it. So part of this is they're going to do training with us so that we can be more effective
Okay.
in making updates on our own. But Jackson Whelan is he currently hosts the website and he will continue to be the host. And if we have big changes that we have to make, he'll do that. But big changes would be we would get a separate quote for that down the line.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Dan?
Yeah, well, one thing, I think you're about 10 years late in getting a new website.
Yeah.
Technology's changed so fast. But just a quick question. A lot of associations that I've been involved with have websites that are designed by specific companies that do websites for associations. And it has a lot of the back of the house type things. And I assume in the library you have your checkout system, your inventory and everything is in a set of software. Is there a company or is there ability to tie that all together so everything is one software maintained and you have a back of the house that you run the library with?
So our online public access catalog, which is how people search, is maintained by Bywater Solutions. It's an open source software, and it's kind of notoriously tricky to integrate with websites. That's a problem that we'll be working with Jackson on. But as we also work with, we have multiple other softwares that we use to access different parts of the digital collection and process interlibrary loans and things like that. And as far as I know, there is not one system that could integrate all of that seamlessly together. Is that the question that you, or is that,
Yeah,
does that answer the question?
Yeah, you did answer the question. It just seems that that moving forward with software development, and I'm not an expert at all, it just seems logical that eventually it should be one set of software that does everything. And
Well, and I will say it is possible that that is out there. However, I can almost guarantee it would be beyond our budget. Part of the reason why we have Koha, which is maintained by Bywater Solutions, is because it's open source.
Okay.
And we belong to a consortium of libraries in Vermont that sort of share that cost equally. So it is possible that there's something out there that's a more boutique solution that I can look into, but I have a feeling it would be unrealistic for our municipal budget at this point.
okay, thanks, Dana.
Sorry, Lindsay?
Starting to feel like the kid with the hand up in the back of class.
Yeah, well, I forgot to unmute.
I was just going to ask, are there going to be any, I mean, first of all, this is great. It's very overdue. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for our community because, you know, having moved to Vermont from out of state and then seeing most local websites, it's a little, you know, a lot of them are a little bit outdated. But I'm wondering, will any of the services that you currently offer in person, obviously you can't check out books online, but you know, are you going to be able to move anything onto the website, or are you thinking like that? Like, will people be able to get a library card online, or?
So one thing we're hoping that we can, and again, hoping, I don't know for sure if we'll be able to, but doing more reference work online. So maybe having like a pop-up thing like chat with a librarian if someone is free and you ask questions, so you don't necessarily have to call in or come in person. If down the road, the town and the library decided together that we could start accepting credit card payments, we're making sure that the website can accommodate that if we get to a point where that's something we want to explore. So yeah, we're trying to think about what else we can kind of wrap into this.
Okay, that'd be great.
If there are no other questions, the last pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion to award a contract to Terrier Tenacity Digital Marketing for the development of a new website for the Ilsley Public Library at a total cost of $4,800.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any final questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify with thumbs up. Congratulations, Dana.
Thanks very much, everyone.
All right, have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, Chris, if we could bring Leslie in and anybody else on the Middlebury Tree Committee who is joining her. Good evening, Leslie.
Hi, I'm up there. Okay. How are you tonight?
Good. So I know you're here to talk about a grant submission.
Yes, a grant is being offered by the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program. It's titled Supporting Vermont Municipalities Through Ash Tree Management. And it's geared toward municipalities that are prepared to manage the impacts of the emerald ash borer on their public ash trees. And since we have an emerald ash borer or EAB management plan, we are a good candidate for that. The top number for the grants are 15,000. And I think you can see a proposal for around 13,000 with the municipality matching in-kind contributions with volunteer hours. Would you like me to explain more about the grant, or do you have any questions?
Does anybody have questions on that? So that the grants to engage residents and potential planting of some trees that replace some of those that are in the areas that you're recommending they be taken out? Is that,
Yes, I think what we're trying to do is have some collaboration with and speak to the community. So one of the things we are trying to do is work with Malt. And when we did our inventory of ash trees affected, we found 92 trees that were ash in the right of way. 16 were removed because they were in poor or dead condition. 2 have been treated with pesticides because of their extraordinary beauty or history or size, and 74 are being monitored. But what we noted is that the parking lots of the TAM have ash trees, and there are no funds through MALT to address that. And this grant or this proposal is requesting the removal of those trees. And then according to our EAB management plan, we want to plant 2 trees for every tree removed in order to maintain our canopy. And with the agreement of MALT, they're suggesting, and we would like to plant those trees along the public right-of-way along the streets. We are also suggesting that those trees that are removed would then be chipped, and that MALT would use them on their trails on the TAM. And one of the things we also wanted to do is engage the public. So we are going to advertise the project, or we're hoping to, and ask for people to apply for a free tree in front of their home, and then also agree to water it for 2 years with friendly reminders from us. And we would also tag those trees to inform the public what kind of trees they are. So we're trying to engage a lot of people in this proposal.
nice. Okay, so I think everybody understands the plan. Any questions on our grant support? And there's the funding, the match is going to be in kind is the proposal. So budgetary wise, it shouldn't impact us. Lindsay?
Yes.
So I had a couple of questions or comments. When you say you're going to chip the ash trees, and I know in there, there was some, a plan to check them for the EAB, but I'm assuming that chipping would, mean that nothing would spread, meaning if those trees were infested, there's no chance of spreading the emerald ash borer if those trees are chipped and used on our trails?
Yeah, that's a great question. 2 things. Having a felled tree checked for EAB is unusual, so that's the first safety thing. And the second is, if you chip it small enough, then there shouldn't be no opportunity for transmission.
Okay. Yeah, that was my one concern. And then before you send this off, I was just going to say, I noticed 2 typos when I was reading through it.
Thank you. Okay.
On Appendix 1, on the second line, you're missing the Y from the word Middlebury. And then under current efforts, it says something happened in a year, and there's a blank where somebody meant to fill in the year. It's down at the bottom. It says summer of 20 ?
Oh, I'm so sorry, but
It's okay.
thank you for catching that.
Before you send it off. And that's all I had, I think.
And that is all in Appendix 1 that you mentioned?
So Appendix 1 is the word Middlebury is missing from that first page where it says Appendix 1.
Yep.
The Y is missing. And then the other, the missing year is under current efforts. Which
Okay.
is,
We'll
I don't
find
know.
it.
They're not numbered, I'm sorry.
Okay.
There's a heading that says current efforts, and it's under there.
Okay.
Heather?
Just wanted to say thanks to Leslie and the tree committee. I think it's just awesome that we have such an active group that is going after these opportunities and creating this kind of program for our community. So I just want to say kudos to the tree committee and Leslie and all the work you're doing, because it makes a big difference. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I know your support is incredibly helpful, so thank you. And the committee all worked on this, so it was a big effort.
Awesome. Pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion to approve the submissions of a supporting Vermont municipalities through ash tree management grant application for $13,820 in support of Middlebury's Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any final questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify with thumbs up. Thank you, Leslie. Please
Thank
let everybody
you.
know. We appreciate it.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, next on the agenda is contract for bid and construction phase services for the East Middlebury Flood Resiliency Project, and Amy Sheldon will be joining us on that, I think.
Ryan, at this time, I don't see Amy in the meeting.
Okay, we're going to move ahead to the next one, then we'll come back to that. Next is the letter of intent to participate in the municipal roads grant and aid program for construction for compliance with municipal road grant permit standards. And Regional Planning Commission, the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation and Agency of Transportation are inviting municipalities to participate in the municipal roads grant and aid program, which provides funding for municipalities to implement best management practices in compliance with the DEC Municipal Roads Grant Permit. And under this program, which is administered through regional planning, VTrans offers reimbursement to municipalities of up to 80% of documented construction expenses, including local in-kind support required to implement the best management practices on hydrologically connected road segments that do not currently meet the MRGP standards. And the confirmation of site visit and notice to proceed was in our packet, shows a list of Middlebury construction projects that were approved under the GIA program in FY20 and the financial benefit to the town. The notification letter notes that funding for the grants and aid program is still pending approval through the state budget and the legislature. However, the FY21 grants and aid initial offer spreadsheet shows that Middlebury could be eligible to receive up to $18,900 in funding based on its 35 to 40 miles of hydrologically connected roads, producing a 20% local match of $4,725. Final funding could vary somewhat based on the number of municipalities participating in the program for FY21. And all eligible construction projects undertaken as part of the program would need to be completed no later than June of 2021. So I'm suspecting this went through your committee, Heather, and you've supported it, no?
No, it didn't go through our committee, but this is pretty standard, Brian, and something I think we've participated in since it started, maybe 3 years, and it's pretty straightforward. I don't.
Is this what we were doing on Court Street, changing the crown of those strips alongside the road, or?
I would not on Court Street. Usually the the water connected roads
Yeah.
are dirt roads.
Dirt roads,
And
but I didn't know if why we were changing that earthen angle on the banks, the roadside banks Do you know why, Kathleen? I've been asked by a number of residents and I haven't been able to
Are
answer.
you talking about the ones at the corner of Monroe Street and Charles Ave?
Yeah, down, it was more than just at the corner. It went down,
Oh,
several hundred yards.
Go ahead.
where they're trimming the sod off
and
where
re-
the curb is, right?
Yeah,
I don't know why, I don't know.
okay.
Nobody knows.
I still can't answer.
I'll get back to you.
Any questions on this particular grant? It's a good program and that it's the state's supporting, it's not a totally unfunded mandate. So I think it's good for us to participate in.
Move to sign the letter of intent to participate in the FY21 Municipal Roads Grant and Aid Program.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any questions?
Brian, before you vote on that, would you entertain a slight amendment to authorize me to sign it so y'all don't have to come in and sign it?
Well, that'd be a great amendment.
I'll make the amendment that we authorize Kathleen Ramsey to sign the letter of intent for the Grants and Aid Program.
You good with that, Farhad?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor signify with a thumbs up. Okay, thank you. Hey, Chris, did Amy jump on yet?
Does not appear she has, Brian.
Okay, we're gonna move on. We discussed briefly the board's approach on advancing race equity and inclusion at the last meeting. Since then, Kathleen and I had a Zoom meeting with the college today to talk about how we could collaborate. And also to talk about how do we engage in dialogue and move forward. One of the things that Kathleen sent us, I believe it was since the last meeting, was a proposal that the offsite, because of the budget and the timing and not having a facilitator, that the offsite would be pushed back a little bit. But also a proposal that we would utilize the 7-step education process. So Kathleen, am I missing anything here? Thoughts on number one, the process. Number two, a little feedback on what came out of our discussion with the college today is that we're looking towards potentially January and maybe March or sometime, but having an invite to participate in their professional development discussion and share a reading, and we would all read the same thing and discuss it. One of those readings might have something to do with defunding the police or that topic, or something like along that line. It's very pertinent to our particular local situation. The second thing that another thing that we talked about that we left as an action item was to get a group and to talk about and engage, and they have a community engagement program of the college community, but to get to the point where they could sit down and could have dialogue with chief and how and try to understand what the mission of the police is above and beyond what people think of when they think of the police, and to review all of the other activities that we rely on our police, and how do you do those if you if it wasn't for the police. And so just to basically a dialogue session to follow up on Ideal's presentation and deep dive into that and what are the solutions if you did want to defund the police, how do you solve some of these other missions, and what's the balance? And so those were two things that we thought that the college could in particular could help us on. Miguel Fernandez was on the call with us, as was the senior leaders, president of Sue was on, and Dave Provost was on. I guess that was the group, and then Chief. And so, there's a couple action items that we feel that we can collaborate on within the community, and we're targeting the new year, but identifying in December so we have time for a reading before that first discussion topic is before we have the date for the discussion topic. And so as we get to that, we'll know what the reading is, and then we'll try to get everybody's calendar so that there's a couple choices that work for everybody. Other thoughts on the process? Dan?
We move that out into January, February, or March. Isn't that getting involved in the middle of our budget process?
This would not be during a select board meeting. This would require us to have another meeting. This would be more like our offsite type of stuff, where it's a professional development and trying to educate ourselves and process it. And so it would not be the same as one of our select board meetings. It would have to be, by nature of what we're trying to undertake, we just don't have the time in our select board meetings to do it.
Right. I agree.
Just to follow up on Dan's comment, though, you bring up a good point. In February, our calendar might be a little bit less hectic since we warn the budget at the end of January. So just keep that in mind as well.
Okay. I was just, I just hope that, I know we've been given lots of podcasts, lots of things to read, which have been super interesting for me. I just think we need to be at least addressing this as we move along every month, and maybe have some things that somebody thinks, maybe we make an agreement of things that we can listen to or read simultaneously to help us prepare. I just think it's important enough that I personally want to stay involved in learning, and maybe we can push each other along as a group.
Heather?
Just to add to Kathleen's comment about February, we will be prepping for town meeting, definitely towards the end of February. So I would almost argue for March, not knowing what town meeting is going to look like and what we're going to have to do to prep for that, unless we can arrange it for maybe, the first half of February. The other thing I wanted to say was I have not gotten through the whole document with the 7 steps. I keep reading pieces of it and running out of time. But anyway, what occurred to me as I've been slowly getting through it is it seems like quite a process that we might want to task a task force with, like going through those 7 steps. Maybe we set up I know I hate to suggest another committee for the town, but like something that, like the tree committee, something that a few people are driving. So anyway, I just had that thought. And separate of that, I agree with what Dan just said. I was also thinking about how it might be nice if we, you know, pick something and agreed to, you know, all read it and discuss it for a short time at a meeting just as part of our regular process. Maybe it doesn't have to be, or listen, or whatever we agree to. And I don't know how we would choose, but I do like the idea of continuing that work and supporting each other. I think Dan said it really well.
Lindsay?
Yeah, I guess I'm very much in agreement with Dan and Heather. You know, if we're gonna apply this, you know, this in-person session with the college to the steps, it's kind of step one, right? It's that has us right at the beginning, which I think is fine because, you know, as we've said, it's better to do it right and slowly. But given that we'll still be on step one in March, I think it would make a lot of sense for us to find something that we can all do. And I'm, you know, I'm aware that everybody's busy, so, you know, maybe a podcast is easier or an audiobook or something. But I would like that idea. And I guess I also just want to be sure as we're setting up meetings and as we're dialoguing with various groups that we don't miss step two, where we're making sure we're finding a way to engage people who are affected by all of this, people of color in the town. So, and obviously that there are a few steps that need to happen before we can get to that point. But I just want to be sure we hit step two at some point in a healthy way. So
Okay.
My thoughts.
No, good thoughts, all. I would like to still, I'm going to push you to see if we can try to do the one with the college, because that would be one that we would all do together, and they're not going to assign a, you know, I did let them know that you know, a long read is a big ask, and they totally get that. We're talking about a senior leader group, but maybe a pertinent read that we could all discuss. And so let's see if we can try to squeeze that in at least by the beginning of February. I know we got a lot of stuff going on, but we're only asking for a couple hours of our time in the course of a couple months. And so I think we can get that done. We did talk to Miguel also about how to engage the you know, the affected people, and that step two, and that is something that that we're thinking about how to do that. Miguel pointed out sometimes we're at, you know, it's a big burden because we're asking a small group to always be the ones educating or testifying or and whatnot, and so I think he's a really good resource for us in this particular situation. So working on setting that up. I don't want to push it off too much. So if you guys are okay with the process, let's see if we can come up with a time that works. If it doesn't, then it is March. But I'm gonna hope we can squeeze it in where it works for us, and we can continue at least to make progress and show that. I think it's important for us. I hear about the work of, and maybe, you know, maybe in the end we after we get to the next steps, maybe there are things that we have a task force for, but I think it's critical for us to, if as the senior leaders of the community, to make these first few steps our steps. Any other thoughts on this? If not, Kathleen, am I missing anything?
No.
Okay. All right. So Kathleen, then updates on the budget?
Sure. So the general fund, equipment fund, water fund, and sewer fund budgets are in your packet. We don't see anything of concern at this point, 25% of the way into the FY21 fiscal year. I'll just make a couple of comments. You'll see that tax revenue is down. That's primarily because our tax payments were due last year in 2 installments, the first one on October 15th and the final one on March 15th. This year we're at 3 installments with the first due November 15th. So that accounts for that sizable difference. As anticipated, recreation revenues are down. Library revenues are also down. Recreation revenues down by about $40,000 and library revenue is down by $6,000. Recreation department expenses are down by $17,000 and library expenses are down by about $20,000. We also note that there's a difference in the payment of $1.8 million in bond payments, which we had made in September last year and not until October this year. So that results in a big change in the bottom line. Those are the noteworthy items for the general fund budget. In the equipment fund, you'll notice there's an increase in the purchase of equipment, which reflects the receipt of the cruiser in this fiscal year. There also is an increase in revenue. As you recall, we rebumped the contributions from the Public Works Department to the equipment fund last year, and you see that reflected in the change in the revenue there in the equipment fund budget. On the water fund, maintenance of mains is, which is our water breaks, our contract services for that is up by about $22,000 compared to last year, but still within a targeted amount at 20% of the budget for that line item, 25% of the way through the fiscal year. Capital budget transfers for FY21 have not been made yet, so you'll also see that reflected in a lower bottom line to date. Same with the sewer fund. And that's my quick overview of the budget. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions of Kathleen? Heather?
Just quickly, Kathleen, the increase in the cemetery program under Public Works, what is that? Just a payment, maybe overlapping fiscal years or something?
We did do some focused work on cemeteries.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Farhad, check warrants.
Oh, that came quick today.
It's ahead of some of the other stuff.
Yeah. All right. Okay. By the authority of Select Board granted on April 28, 2020, I have reviewed and approved total expenditures in the amount of $2,371,859.26, consisting of $2,268,064.61 for accounts payable and $103,794.65 for payroll for the period of October 14th to October 27th, 2020. And I move the board's approval of payment of these expenditures.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? All in favor, signify with thumbs up. Okay. And then Kathleen, Town Manager's report.
So Brian, I've been keeping an eye out for Amy Sheldon and haven't seen her yet. Would you like me to start off with that or end
If
with
you're
that?
prepared to do it and can answer any questions, then go ahead, Kathleen.
I think between Heather and I, we can do it.
Okay.
Oh, I hate to, because Amy Sheldon has been working on this project for 9 years and finally getting to a
years.
point where we are permitted and we have secured the funding from FEMA to go forward with the project, and everything looks like we are on track for next year. So in accordance with that, Amy Sheldon and Roy Schiff of Malone and McBroom submitted a proposal to the Infrastructure Committee last Thursday and answered questions by the Infrastructure Committee for the bid services and construction oversight of the project. The oversight includes approximately 45 site visits during the course of the project. So the proposal before you is for a $70,000 contract for bid phase services and construction oversight during the project.
Any questions on that? Anything you wanted to comment on, Heather?
No, I would just, Kathleen did a great job. We need to get Kathleen a motion sensor in her office.
I asked her to, I think she just needs a regular light switch because it's happened. I went to see her the other day and her light was out. So I turned around at her door and left. And I got an email from her. Sorry, I missed you. I was here the whole time, but I didn't want to go into I didn't want to intrude on a blacked out office.
Can you set a table lamp in front of you, Kathleen? So
I do, but that's why you were seeing that glow on my face. I have that table lamp, but it doesn't have enough wattage to illuminate this.
Okay.
So the only thing else I would add is that I think the $70,000 contract is consistent with the original budgeted proposal, and it is what we expected. So I'm just excited to see that project move forward.
And Amy has just joined us, so I'm going to promote her to panelist.
Good evening, Amy.
Hi, everybody. I have never been in that frame of Zoom before, so I was like, you can't hear me, I'm here. That must be a good security measure, I'm guessing.
Yes. So, Amy, I'm sorry we stole all of your thunder, but everybody's happy to hear the news that we are moving forward.
That's great. I'm sorry I was on some track of the old schedule.
Well, it's all right. So we do have the good news, and so we have Amy. Are there any questions of Amy from the board? Yes, Dan.
I just have a quick one. Maybe the rest of the select board have seen it, but I'd love to get a site visit there because I read everything we're doing and what we're doing, and I fish the river. But I would love to get a walkthrough of that. I don't know if any of the other select board want to do that. If we can, I'll do it at once.
Yeah.
And see what is going to happen.
That's a great idea. And we are, I mean, maybe you gave the total update, but the town permit is underway and 79 people have been notified. So it's probably our biggest direct mailing for that. Did you already cover that?
No.
Okay. So there may be others in the public who would want to join. Let's figure out how to schedule that offline, and folks can just let me know who wants to do it, and I'd love to do it. I know Roy was out there today with his partner doing the final tree inventory. Judy asked about that the other day at the Infrastructure Committee. So we'll know how many trees need to be removed any day now after they get that back to us. So things are definitely starting to move ahead.
I would love to join you, Dan.
Great.
Yeah, we have quite a few new board members since we've been working on this project a long time, Amy. I didn't realize it'd been as long as it has.
It's going to be the 10-year anniversary when we construct it from Irene. but it's hopefully going to happen. Yeah, I was just looking at the grant award today, and it started in 2011. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
The disaster declaration was 2011.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, Amy, but if I may, one thing we didn't mention that's important is the town authorized up to a $500,000 grant match town meeting last year. And since then, we've received a $200,000 state clean water revolving loan, rather than drinking clean water, of $200,000, which so it reduces our match down to $300,000, which is also wonderful news. So
Yeah, all good news. So I'll ask the pleasure of the board if we could get a motion there.
I'll move to award a contract to Malone and McBroom for the bid phase and construction phase services for the East Middlebury Flood Resiliency Project for a not to exceed total of $70,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded. So are there any final questions before we vote?
And I think it's I should probably just point out that part of that $70,000 would also go to me, and it was intended to be kind of a direct contract, not with Malone and McBroom, but added to my contract with the town for construction oversight in there. So I just want to clarify that.
Okay. All in favor of supporting the motion, signify with thumbs up. All right. Go forward and do great things for East Middlebury River.
Thank you. I hope we can. So we'll try to get that site visit scheduled before it gets too much colder than it is now.
Okay.
Great. And are you all going to talk about the airport project? I'm just looking at your very detailed agenda.
I don't think
Not seeing it.
we have that. It's because we've talked about it. We written a letter supporting to go to the Act 250. They've done the site visit. We do know that we were all informed, I guess, that the site visit was less than impressive. And I did see your notes that you were going to address that with them some.
Yeah, I just wanted to let folks know that VTrans did get back to me, and they're going to do another site visit.
Good. Although Judy let us know this evening, we did talk about it in citizen comments that that the safety, the need for doing the clear cut for safety isn't necessarily the total story, because they're in compliance right now. So she was told that by airport manager. So
Yeah, it seems like there's still information coming in.
yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah. All
Good.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Kathleen, if you want to revert back to the town manager report.
So in the interest of time, so that we can keep on schedule, I'm going to leave it at 13A and 13B for the board to review at your leisure, and go on to 13C, the Center for Tech and Civic Life Grant for Safe and Secure Election Administration. Town clerk and Webster report that the town has been awarded a grant in the amount of $5,029.50 from the Center for Tech and Civic Life based in Chicago. According to the award notification, grant funds must be used exclusively for the public purpose of planning and operationalizing safe and secure election administration in Middlebury town in 2020, and notes that she plans to use the grants funds to cover additional staffing needed to meet the demands of various changes in the election process, and to purchase some supplies and equipment not covered by the funds from the Vermont Secretary of State's office. There is no matching fund requirement from the town in order to receive the grant, and all funds must be expended by December 31st, 2020. At this time, the board is being asked to authorize me to sign the grant agreement, accepting the terms and conditions outlined in the grant award notification in your packet.
Pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion to accept the grant award of $5,029.50 from Center for Tech and Civic Life and authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to sign the grant agreement.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor signify with a thumbs up. Okay. So now we come to a break. Yes, Heather.
Brian, sorry. Are we going to talk at some point about the United Way letter? Maybe just not tonight?
Not tonight, next time I was planning.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's probably something that'd be nice to have the whole board to discuss, as well as anything we want to do on policy, on the graffiti policy. I think people ought to think about that a little bit. So we have a little bit of a break here for 4 minutes. If you need a drink or anything, water, that would be good. Heather, what's your schedule like? Yeah, been busy?
Yes. Yeah, it's
At some point just to go over something.
yeah, just let me know, Brian. Life is just a little crazy right now, but
Okay.
you know, it's good. Just let me know.
I'll just send you a text. You can call me when it works. We can just do it over the phone.
Okay. Sounds good. How's your dog doing?
Lovely.
So my one of my sister's dogs, she's got labs, just had puppies Saturday. So
Man.
we're tentatively told her we're interested in one. But every time I think about raising a puppy, I'm like, oh, do I want to go there?
It is so much work, but it's so rewarding.
Yeah. So we, the mom was a little, we were going to go over on Sunday and check them out, but this is the dog's first litter, and my sister was feeling a little bit like she was a little more protective, and so she was going to give her a little more time to adjust, and before a bunch of people started coming over and inspecting her new babies. So
Man. Yeah, we're 11 months in now, so he's
teenage years.
growing. The time went fast, didn't it? We just went by the 12-month anniversary of Olivia's little mishap there.
Oh, how's she doing?
She's down in Boston right now at Mass General, just getting checked out, seeing if they can do a little bit more. So, it's good. Everybody's good. We're just tired of the COVID lockdown mentality, but gonna have to endure it for months more. So I need to nest away a lot more acorns, I think.
Yeah, we got notice at a staff meeting a week or so ago that we are, even though they're making arrangements for opportunities to work in the office, we are basically on remote work schedule through March 2021. So that will be about a year for us. So it's hard to imagine. It's like it seems forever and not long all at the same time. So
I know.
Yeah, I'll continue to remotely work also.
Oh,
I'm good. I'm
I'm
good
glad-
at that.
I'm glad you are working so hard remotely, Dan.
I know I got it. Brian gave me a new tractor, so I got something to play with.
Perfect. So is that your excuse for missing the MREMS meeting? You were on your new tractor driving it everywhere?
I might have been actually. Yes. And that and how goofy I am.
nothing better than tractor therapy.
Yeah, I felt pretty good when I was missing the meeting, but I was pretty embarrassed after I figured it out about 4 o'clock. So,
Hey, that happens to everybody. No worries.
I was clean until then, so.
Chris, can you invite Jennifer into the meeting?
I will do that right now.
Where's Victor tonight?
Victor sent me a note and said he wasn't able to make this evening's meeting, so.
Okay.
Good evening, Jennifer.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Nice to see everyone again.
You ready to present?
Sure.
So I assume you're going to get control of the slides, or?
Yeah, I should do it as a share screen. So let me get that.
Okay, so Jennifer's, for any, I don't know how many people we have watching out there, but Jennifer Murray's our Director of Planning and Zoning for Middlebury, and she does a lot of work in the background. You don't see her a lot on these meetings, but she's cranking out a ton of work in the background. And this is the presentation of the final draft of the downtown master plan, and the first time that it's being presented to the community. So
I
Is
think
she gonna go through the whole 138 pages?
I'm going to try to like zip through the whole thing section by section. We'll see how we do.
Good luck. Okay.
I won't do it justice. You'll have to forgive me in advance. I did a run through today and it took me 45 minutes to do about half of it. So I have to talk twice as fast now. I'm going to hide my thumbnail video so I can see the screen. I don't know if other people want to do that as well. Alrighty. So you ready for me to start, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this is the first of 2 visits I'll make to you. I see the second visit is in the agenda for November 13th. Is it the 13th, Kathleen, or the 10th?
It's the 10th.
The 10th, okay. So I'll be back on November 10th, a few Mondays from now, to answer any additional questions that come up during this. I'll try to pause after each section and see if you have any questions. So, so yeah, at long last, we've got the downtown master plan. We had a preliminary draft in June, and the steering committee has been spending some time going through it all, and the consultants and I have been meeting and going through it all, and I feel really good about this final draft that you're seeing here tonight. So I'm going to skip right by the chapters that I'm sure you've already checked out. So here we are in the why plan section. So just as a reminder, there's different kinds of plans, right? So our town plan is a comprehensive plan that is really hard for me not seeing a face. I can do this. So our comprehensive plan is just like a really high level plan, right? Our town comp plan, it's a visionary document. It just kind of looks at takes a broad strokes view of all these different subject matters in the town. And this is the same kind of plan. It's really high level. It's largely aspirational, largely visionary. And there's a lot of big ideas in this plan that we'll have to spend some time to figure out how to make some piece of those happen. But there's also a lot of little suggestions in the plan too that could be implemented right away. And I just wanted to say that because it's different than a planning strategy where everything that you see in the plan is going to happen sometime, determinate in the future. I say that in case there's anyone listening in from home, because I've had a few questions from people that say, oh my gosh, like you can't put a trail right there in my backyard. And I want people to understand that it's just very high level, very aspirational, just some big ideas. Another reminder, it's been about 20 years since we've done a comprehensive planning effort focused on our downtown. So this is an exciting time and the right time to do it, because we'll be emerging from this COVID crisis, from the Bridge and Rail project, poised to be able to take advantage of opportunities going forward. Hopefully we're all taking the same path. And so I'll just borrow a metaphor from our consultant. The plan provides a playbook for meeting community needs while protecting and enhancing what people love about Middlebury. So You're the coaches, the team members, you can call whatever play you want from this plan, but this will be the playbook and the guidebook that gives you some good ideas for moving forward. Please take time to go through these. I find they're super handy for explaining this plan to people in the community. Number 2 is a big one, understand the element of time, which I'm trying to do right now. But understand the element of time that, you know, some things will happen in the short term, some are more long-term aspirations. So the process, everyone here is familiar with the process because all the select board members participated in the Plan-A-Palooza, and thank you so much for your time. It was really great to have representation from the town leaders there. The process began in early summer 2019. We had 2 interns from Middlebury College, and those 2 interns did a bunch of different surveys, in-person interviews with business owners, intercept surveys on the sidewalk of tourists. They left piles of surveys by the registers, and those survey responses were really elucidating for me to read through and the consultants to read through. We compiled all these responses, and it wasn't long really before we started seeing some basic general themes emerge. This shows you the results of 75 surveys that we had people complete at the downtown block party. And then based on the frequency with which they responded and used certain words, those words came out larger. You've seen these kind of word art diagrams before, and you'll see that there's some consistent themes emerging. I'd like to brag more about all the other public input we did, but suffice to say, I feel really positive about how many people, hundreds of people that we talked to at all different levels, in focus groups, in person, in public meetings. I really feel like this is a plan of the people, and I feel like I learned an immense amount about Middlebury and how people feel about Middlebury from this process. And I'm glad that this guidance document is here for decision makers to be able to use when you do your work too. It's just so nice to actually have some data to underscore our actions and our decisions. So this is just a profile section. It shows you a general downtown area map, no biggie, just some basic amenities, and some of the underlying data that sort of drives some recommendations later in the plan. Super fun data. I don't want to spend a lot of time going through it, but you know, just some things really jump out. Stagnant population growth. Only 6% of our population lives in downtown. It could be so much more. We have 37% of our population composed of Middlebury College students. So how do we really try to key into them and get them downtown? Here's some statistics in the lower right-hand corner comparing downtown to the town at large. Not a lot of big differences. So guiding principles. I said there were themes that were starting to emerge, and they emerged really in 6 different areas. So guiding principles for our consultants are different in every community that they work in. These were the 6 that really resonated for Middlebury. And these 3 guiding principles led to the chapters that were developed and the recommendation areas that were developed. So the first of 6 really guiding principles for downtown Middlebury is this inclusivity, gathering places and destinations for all. So it's not only, you know, so, I mean, you can see a list of what we mean by inclusivity. I mean, it's things you might not think of, like people of different ages, people of different abilities, people who were born here versus visiting here. We want to make downtown a place where everyone can find something that appeals to them. Housing choice, meaning housing opportunities in downtown, but choices, fourplexes, duplexes, attached wall townhomes, condos, apartments in an apartment building, single family homes. We need a diversity of different housing types that reach people at different price points to encourage more people to move to downtown. Economic vibrancy and cultural vibrancy, which includes sort of the arts and events in downtown, transportation choice, and then sustainability and resiliency. So let's hone in on those 6 areas, and we can start with arts and culture. Am I talking too fast? No, okay, good. So the first is arts and culture. So one thing I knew, but I guess I really hadn't honed in on, is the fact that Middlebury has incredible arts and cultural assets. We have 2 major museums right in our downtown. The events that come through Town Hall Theater are world-class events, not to mention the events at Mahaney Arts Center up on the hill. And then the big festivals that we have in downtown are again, world-class, you know, really exceptional. And we have small events in nightlife that is interesting to people too. So we met with an arts and culture focus group, which were representatives from almost all the major sort of art institutions. And they said that they would like to meet again. They really enjoyed the focus group so much. We ran overtime, and they thought of all these different things that they could do if they got together on a more regular basis. So that shows up as our first recommendation, which is to create a new Middlebury Arts organization, starting with that focus group and building from there, which would have representative from all of our major art institutions, which could help guide promotion efforts and marketing efforts. They could collaborate, share resources, and also could be a group for guiding a mural and public art program. And that's something I know you've been tossing around for a while. It's difficult to think about a municipality administering a public art program because we're really not supposed to regulate art. But someone needs to kind of proctor, run a selection process and sort of proctor the submissions. And this group might really be it for us. So that's top on the list of recommendations. There were other recommendations we heard, such as making the Marble Works potentially some live work spaces where you could have studios down below and apartments up above where artists could come and function in that area. So activating the town green in winter, trying to work a little bit harder on advertising events and having them all in one place. We heard from a lot of college surveys that they didn't know what was going on in downtown, but would participate if they knew. So maybe there's a way for Addison Independent and the excellent coverage they do of events and Experience Middlebury and the great calendar that they have to get together, list more college events and make that available to students. Not to mention bringing the farmers market back downtown. So this is the section on sustainability. Oh, so does anyone have any comments or questions about art and culture? Okay. The next section is sustainability and resiliency. Sustainability and resiliency, it was we were back and forth on whether to break this out as a separate section because it's more of a value that underscores all of the other suggestions and recommendations in the plan. So we see this as a consistent theme or a ribbon running throughout the plan, but we did break it out as a separate section. And some interesting takeaways from this section is that we like the idea of turning Middlebury into a community that could be a demonstration community where we partner with the college to always remain on the cutting edge of different renewable energy technologies and things like that. I mean, just starting with our municipal offices and the tours that happen here and just expanding into some of the other things that we have in our downtown and can add to our downtown. So this section definitely counts our town energy committee as an asset. As well as the Climate Economy Action Center. Those are two things that not a lot of towns can rely on the way that we can. So, so we build on those assets going forward, hopefully. The next section is Green Network. So what do we mean by Green Network? Oh, any comments on sustainability and resiliency? Sorry. Or questions? Okay. So the next section is Green Network. By Green Network, we mean not only stormwater, but also our open spaces and our parks. We're really blessed to have so many different park spaces in our downtown. And so this section contemplates how we could connect them with better connections and then also some stormwater treatments. So one of the things I really enjoyed about this downtown master plan, and I didn't expect it, was the stormwater section. And the sub-consultant Horsley Witten that was brought in by our lead consultant, TPUDC. Horsley Witten is from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. They started as environmental advocates and became engineers and landscape architects that recommend stormwater solutions. So this is a really special section in the sense that when they came to our downtown, they were fresh eyes in our downtown, and they looked around and they saw places where we could include stormwater treatments that were not only really functional for treating water quality, but we're also aesthetically pleasing and contributed in a positive way to our streetscape and the built environment. And so this consultant tried really hard to partner with TPUDC, who's an urban designer, and was creating illustrative master plans showing places for infill development and new construction to propose stormwater treatments that complemented them. So so this is an example of what I mean. Like here's a sidewalk that you're like, oh, that's a beautiful green sidewalk. But what's happening here is these are bioretention areas, and the water is coming through these permeable pavers and from the street through these breaks in the curb into these areas where it's sitting and being polished, if you will. The sediments coming out, pollutants are coming out. And then most likely in this situation, because it's an urban context, most likely this is feeding back through an under drain system into the municipal stormwater system. And I like this picture because we've often been told that that's a problem in downtown Middlebury because we have such a high clay layer, such a high bedrock layer, that infiltration practices don't always work great here. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't polish the water, let it sit there a little bit before we discharge it back to our system. And that results in cleaner runoff being discharged to Otter Creek, which runs right through the middle of our downtown. So that's the context for these photos. Here's an open space network plan. It's really more of a map showing all the different green open spaces and parks in downtown. And the ones that are hatched are proposed spaces that are being developed or will be developed. And then it proposes these dotted lines, just connecting them all. And, I think this map is valuable because let's say we wanted to create a bike lane between Middlebury College and downtown for bike commuters. And we were deciding, do we put it on Main Street or College Street? College Street might be a better choice because it also helps you connect all these different parks here at the same time, and you get more bang for your buck. So this is the kind of stuff that a plan like this can do for you. It can just give you more information to make better informed decisions. Here's a stormwater infrastructure plan. All these little colored dots are different stormwater treatments proposed by the consultant that would need to be, you need to apply for grants and do a scoping study and design out the specifics of how that treatment would work. But given what they know about designing these things, when they walked around our downtown, and they did physically walk around, this is where they saw these different things probably working. And then these numbers over here are the result of a downtown stormwater master plan done in 2016 by ACRPC. So we've included their recommendations in one map. So this is an overview map showing, keep in mind, I said this stormwater consultant is also thinking about how you complement the built environment and the streetscapes. So they are proposing an entire green alley system that goes between Mr. Ups here and runs all the way down Mill Street on the other side to kind of the municipal parking lot down in Frog Hollow, or Mill Street, the Mill Street lot. And so let's look at each one of these sections individually. I'll try not to be a nerd because I'm really jazzed about this section. I think these are really fun sections to think about. They're very inspirational. So here's that area down below Mary and Stacy, down below Mad Taco. And this shows the area reconceived with the parking moved away from the river. So everyone kept saying to us, we need more access to the river. We're not taking, good enough advantage of our river. This moves all that ugly stuff to the other side of the road or to the municipal lot, all those parked cars and other things. And then it opens this up with a little path and a possible boardwalk and a bioretention feature. So this is actually being developed to about a 50% engineering stage. And this would be a real likely candidate for a future grant application if the infrastructure committee was into it. Moving further up the street, most of you saw this at Planapalooza. This is Park Street up here. There's the bike shop to the left. And this just reconceives this street as a shared street with bike and pedestrians and also a little bit of parking up there, opening this up as a plaza and also treating the stormwater that comes down that street in a feature like this that goes underground and then goes through two cascading rain gardens before it hits Otter Creek going through Jessica Swift Park. So there's a lot of content in this plan too. Any piece of this could be developed as a future grant application or a future stormwater project. So then this section shows us as we get to Main Street, and this is some sort of stamped concrete or permeable pavement or cobble or something like this. If we ever redo this street surface, the plan is recommending that we think about giving it a surface like that so that you have a feeling of arrival when you get to this intersection, so you know you're in a downtown and it helps you with the pedestrian scale. They've found places for trees. There's not a lot of place for trees along our Main Street, trees or bike paths, but they found a little bit of space in front of Ben Franklin where they think 3 trees would probably fit with some bump outs. That might help if anyone wants to develop this in the future to have a little bit of green space there. And then this concept continues down Bakery Lane here. This contemplates, geez, what if we had a parking garage in the area? What if there was lower level parking in Ben Franklin that people could share? What if there was a little on-street parking here and you could eliminate that parking next to Taste of India? That could easily be a pocket park with seats where you could look over the river. So just always with a mind toward opening up the river and making downtown greener. These are all potential ideas. And then this idea, which is very timely, you know, as people are talking about a Riverwalk path on the other side of the river where the access road is for construction. Why not think about a Riverwalk path on this side of the river where the town owns the property? This is the municipally owned lot down below the municipal office buildings. There's a boardwalk, it's cantilevered over Otter Creek in this location that goes to Mr. Ops. So once again, really preliminary plans. If there was interest, you'd have to, you know, do a little bit more public process. You'd have to write a grant to scope it out, to engineer it, more public input, et cetera. But, you know, the idea is that having these ideas put in our minds, you know, inspires us to try some different things. This is the water flowing off the municipal lot into a sediment forebay before it goes into a manufactured wetland. It kind of sits there until it overflows into the Otter Creek. It's just really neat. So it has this functionality, plus it's beautiful. So what are the takeaways from the recommendation section of the stormwater section? Just a few things like, you know, trying to coordinate between planning and the infrastructure committee and the work that Dan does to try to anticipate when a street project is going to come along that would allow us to include some innovative stormwater features as well. And that involves like knowing maybe 3 years or 2 years ahead of time so that I could maybe chase down a grant and bring that to the table to try to pay for something that had added value. There's an idea in here about a stormwater utility. You know, we could take it or leave it, but it would be silly not to have the recommendation in there. Yeah, and also utilizing Middlebury College students to help with the maintenance aspect. That's something we hear from Public Works sometimes is who's going to maintain all these beautiful plantings in these wet swales. Middlebury College students in the sustainability program, I think would be really willing to help out. So that's the stormwater section in a nutshell, the green section. Any comments on that or questions? All right.
John, I have a question. What kind of grants are out there for this type of work?
A&R has a lot of grant, you know, because we're in a watershed that's what's the term for it? There's too much phosphorus in our watershed. So yeah. So that leads to grant opportunities through A&R to include stormwater treatments that polish the phosphorus out of the runoff. So even when we do a downtown transportation fund grant, there's an add-on where they'll give you more money if you have a stormwater treatment along with it. So now we have some really interesting ideas for how we can include those.
Okay. And this supports that grant writing?
Yeah, definitely. These are concept plans. So this would be enough to send in with a grant to say, we need some money for some engineering to really suss it out.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. So the next section is housing choice. Everybody wants to know why we selected this photograph. We couldn't find another one in Vermont that had excellent photo quality, but what this does is it shows you a few different housing types, like all living in harmony in the same neighborhood. This is a fourplex, most likely. And here's like a multifamily apartment building and a single family. And so that's the idea, that we want to just increase the different kinds of housing that we have in downtown. Our consultant was pleasantly surprised that when he showed precedent images of more dense housing in different kinds of buildings, like apartment buildings, things other than single family homes, people were very tolerant of it. People were very tolerant of vertical high-rise buildings. I mean, not high-rise like 7 stories, but 3-4 stories, people were still okay with it in downtown. So that's a good sign for future public meetings to review plans that might be submitted to us. Again, only 6% of our population is downtown. We could increase that a little bit. Just a word about middle income housing. So this is a really interesting thing that I learned in this process. I feel like I should give you a map or something so you don't just have to listen to me. Here, you can look at these pictures. So there's a missing middle in Middlebury. We have affordable housing that's low or very low income affordable housing, subsidized, probably not enough of it. I don't know if we can ever have enough of it, but we do have that in Middlebury, and we do have housing that's more toward the high end, like luxury housing, but we have very little in the middle. And the reason for that is because the cost of construction for new construction for housing and commercial, the housing in particular in Middlebury is very high. So the cost of materials and the cost of labor is almost as high in Middlebury as it is in the greater Burlington area. Only people can fetch much less for rent in this area. So in order for a developer to have a project that pencils out, he probably needs subsidies. You can find state and federal subsidies for affordable housing, so things are being built on that end. You can get what's sort of a subsidy if you add a lot of high-end finishes and charge a lot for that housing, so that takes care of the upper end. But that entire middle area is kind of unaccounted for. There aren't subsidies to build middle-income housing. So why is that important? That's important for the whole economy of the town, because Porter Hospital, that's their transporters, that's their technicians, that's their visiting nurses. The college, that's, you know, some visiting professors. It's definitely people who are working in food services, building and grounds. So this is what they mean by workforce housing. And if we can't create more workforce housing that, well, and I'm looking at Dan, I'm thinking of restaurant owners too, you know, and trying to find people to work in the restaurants and the inns. You know, we heard that they can't find people to work there, although that might even be like lower on the income scale. I don't know if some of those workers qualify for ACCT housing. But even if they do, we've heard that there's a 3-year waiting list for ACCT, and that the median income for people qualifying for that housing is probably around $20,000 a year, which is very low. So if the median household income in Addison County is somewhere around $62,000, $65,000, you know, how are those people finding housing? So what we hear from realtors and what we hear from those institutions that I just mentioned is that it's making it difficult to attract good workers to this area because they don't have anywhere to relocate to. They can't find a home. And then if you think about, just take a departure from apartments and rental housing for a second and think about single family housing, there's a shortage of single family housing too. And we've heard from empty nesters that some of them would move to downtown if there was nice housing available for them in downtown. So creating middle income housing for people who would move out of their single family homes and move to the downtown also helps us, because that puts more single family homes on the housing market. So that's sort of like the housing situation in a nutshell. And it surprised me, right? Because I thought, well, geez, if we have so much demand for housing, why wouldn't a developer come build housing? That seems like the best thing in the world for them to build. But the finances don't really work out for it at the market rate price point, if that makes sense. And it's a similar story for commercial. So what we want to do is we want to we'd like to encourage developers to think about using institutional partners, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later. But if you build housing and the person who rents the housing has the ability to pay above market rate, then you might be able to make it affordable for yourself. So if Middlebury College or Porter Hospital were a partner in creating workforce housing in downtown, that might help the metrics to work. Or another thing is that incentives could be created by the town. They could contribute the land, or they could contribute financially, and that's dealt with in a recommendation here. That's harder for me to get my head around. We can also create incentives through our zoning, not so much like density bonuses. I don't know how far that takes us, but we have a grant in hand to change our zoning to be able to qualify for an NDA designation. So this neighborhood development area designation is a state designation similar to the village center designation or the downtown designation that would make affordable housing projects that meet their definition of affordability exempt from Act 250 altogether. So that's a huge bonus to a developer, and it might be enough to help distinguish ourselves from other communities to try to attract a developer who would build housing in Middlebury to Middlebury. Any questions on that? That's a lot. That's a lot to chew, but I feel better getting it off my chest. I wanted to share this with you.
I actually have a question on that, Jen, and you did mention it as far as looking at the zoning. There's a lot of things that contribute to that per square foot cost that keeps it from being able to be what we would consider affordable to the middle income. Some of the things are, you know, I just went through it with commercial building on like the parking requirements and stuff like that. And if we're going to promote more density in our downtown, which I agree we need to do, and I'm a big proponent for, to bring more people downtown and make it a real vibrant downtown. Have you got a list of things, or is that on your project list to look through, and what are those regs and zoning requirements and permitting requirements? What are the things that the town can do to help support this besides approving of the concept? Because when in the end, a lot of the cost is driven by all these other things.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of ideas for, so like the NDA designation, that's a way of changing the zoning to be able to get a state incentive to help incentivize people coming and developing in Middlebury and being exempt from Act 250, which I think is a much more scary specter than local zoning, and saving money on water and wastewater fees, which is way more than any fees that we charge for permits. I really like that program exists because I think it kind of shifts the blame where it belongs. As far as parking, I'm really glad you brought this up because I want to address the myth that people can't develop in downtown because we require so much parking, or that we're requiring so much parking from people that it's cost prohibitive for them. There are a couple different ways in the zoning to reduce the parking count. And so when people tell us how much parking they need, they're telling us how much parking they need, and we've got calculations that for how much parking that they should provide, but there's green space waivers if they want to reduce the parking count. And there's also in the downtown area, there's a parking fee waiver, which allows you to pay a fee of, I think it's $250 per space to not have to provide that parking according to the parking count. And then that money goes into a parking fund. So so we can reevaluate those things, but there are outs. And yeah, I heard that was one of the reasons why the next bridge proposal didn't go forward. And I wasn't here for that, but they definitely could have reduced the parking count a lot more than they were led to believe.
That was one of the impediments for sure
Mhm.
on the next bridge proposal.
But I like the idea of changing the zoning so that developers can add more density than the zoning currently allows. Let's add more units on smaller lots, and let's allow them to go higher if they have to. And yeah, create ways for people to do interesting carriage barn conversions and add accessory apartments and things like that to add some more density in downtown. But I think it's a really delicate balance where you also have to make sure that you're still requiring things that contribute to the character of the town. So I guess so I mean, you guys will be the ones to approve the regulations, but I don't really want to get rid of our regulations on some of the landscaping in parking lots. I think that's been helping a lot, but I know it is a little bit of a cost to people developing. I don't know.
Okay.
Reservation requirements are still important.
Yeah, I guess I would just ask that as you go through this process, that you look at some of the requirements with the lens of what we want, and have we in the past created some obstacles that prevented that from happening, and how do we fix that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say, yeah. So if you've got any particular things in mind, please email them to me. I'd like to know. Fahad, same for you. You've done a little development with the town or been privy to it next door to your place, and Dan too. Like if you can think of anything in the zoning that's truly been prohibitive, please drop me a line and let me know. And we've got a grant to hire a consultant to go through and try to streamline our zoning to allow a greater diversity of housing in downtown. Any other thoughts on this section? Alrighty, so this is the transportation choice section. So, I mean, we could talk about transportation. We definitely, kind of the main highlights of the input that we got. People feel like downtown proper is really congested with a lot of large truck traffic. There's a recommendation in here for maybe looking into that and figuring out, is it truly impossible to do that thing that Don Keeler suggested a couple years ago of sending all the truck traffic out to Route 7 and avoiding that corridor between the Congo Church and the Circle, keeping that big traffic from going over Patel Bridge. Is there a possibility for that? And if there is, does it include, upgrading an intersection like the one at Court Street to allow more big truck right-hand turns onto Court Street or what have you? It'd just be really nice to start to work on that, because that would make a tremendous difference in downtown. And we just heard that input from people over and over again. Of course, a lot of it was at the block party and they were being spoiled at the time by being able to walk freely on Main Street, but that's okay. We identified 3 major corridors that we just need to pay attention to. We need to improve connectivity between the rail platform in downtown, the college in downtown, and the schools in downtown. That pretty much sums up all the input that we got really in the bike ped category. And I think that's just this map will be a really helpful way for safe routes to schools and organizations like that to think about that predicament. So this map focuses just on improvements to connectivity, and you could just look it over at your leisure. These are just suggestions. This might not be the way people really want to do these things, but these are possible improvements to connectivity that would just make it a little easier to get around downtown. And then this tracks from this map. So these numbers on this map mesh with these recommendations that just go into these connectivity ideas a little bit further. Any thoughts on the transportation section? All right. So economic vibrancy, we split that into 3 subsections. I'll just go through each of them quickly. So, economic vibrancy, really germane to downtown. Downtown is a real economic driver for the town of Middlebury and the region. Yeah, and this is the statistics that support that. This is all kind of based on, this is just some interesting facts that we got during our inventory process. I think we're really well served by the work that our interns did last summer, because we have a lot more housing inventory and commercial space inventory information than we did not have before. We could actually probably put a number on, we can put a number on the total retail spaces in downtown and the amount of commercial space downtown, and we couldn't do that before. So kudos to them. They were really great to work with. So as far as retail and restaurants, retail and restaurants, the name of the game is just getting more foot traffic in downtown. And yeah, so we just want to generate additional pedestrian foot traffic. Interestingly, we asked people in their surveys, how many destinations did you visit after parking once? And you have to ask yourself if there's more or less foot traffic when people can park right in front of the business they want to go to and leave immediately after. Having people park and walk a little ways to get to where they're going might encourage them to visit more than one business. So it could be an okay thing. A lot of people I don't know, I talked to some people who have lived here for a long time who have started to feel like, oh, downtown doesn't hold anything for me. I go to Mr. Ops and then I go home. Like it's for Middlebury College parents and tourists. But this is, we surveyed our businesses and they attribute over 50% of their sales to people from the region, especially in the off season. So it's really important for people who are local to go to our restaurants. And I mean, COVID is doing a really good job of reminding us of what we could lose and what we value, and really reminding us to shop local and eat local. More promotions are probably necessary for that. Yes, the businesses said that they had trouble finding employees and attracting students as patrons as well. So honing in on these just sort of key problems, we have several recommendations for retail and restaurant. And this is what I mean by this plan having very specific recommendations, then very high level recommendations. These get very specific in these sections, these recommendations. People could start jumping on these right away. You remember I was just in front of you maybe a month ago asking you to endorse that municipal planning grant for some marketing and promotion. A lot of the ideas, if we get that grant, will be able to come from the downtown master plan. So it's already proving super useful. So number one, in our surveys with local businesses, they just really wanted, more of a liaison, more of like a relationship with the town through the downtown organization. So I don't know if BMP might need to add a staff member, or maybe this is a new regional position that just works in all 3 of the sister downtowns in Addison County. But the idea is that the businesses could really explain to them the problems they're having, and this person could articulate that to zoning or, or the select board or what have you, and just kind of be an emissary. Sort of a clearinghouse for their issues, and also help new businesses when they're coming in, help with recruitment and marketing, help with marketing, branding strategies, collaboration, shared resources, etc. So that was kind of the big recommendation that we came up with in this section. This talks about some niche areas. Of course, farmers market helps everything. Working with the college in number 6 to allow their meal plans to include access to local restaurants. That came up in our restaurant focus group. People really seemed to like it, and the college seemed to like it too. This is something that could happen. This is how we dealt with the parking issue. We think that there should be a parking management strategy and a parking management program. We have parking that we're probably not using as well as we could be. It would be good to answer the question of whether we meter some of that parking, what the appropriate time limits are on that parking. And you could really conquer that using a transportation engineer to put together a parking management strategy. And so then, 15 and 20, we can't ignore the fact that that 27.6% of the college population identifies as BIPOC, and we have 10.6 international college students. And to think of all the cool things that they know and that they're into that they could share with us in our downtown to revitalize our downtown and bring some of that, cultural vitality to downtown, like that's pretty neat. Also, if businesses want to be able to cater to a greater diversity of people, they need to start thinking about different things like the recommendation we got from the student council president saying there's no one who cuts textured hair in downtown. There's nowhere that, I can go and have my hair done in downtown, and that's not fair to me as a Black student. So just a thought. Food carts, permitting food carts. I mean, how many people come to my office and ask about food carts and, where can I put a food cart and blah, blah, blah. You'll see, I guess we skipped over it in the transportation section, but TPUDC kind of thought about whether we could create a plaza in or around Town Hall Theater, building on the little alley design that they have now as a place that would be a permanent go-to place for food carts. Oh, and then keeping community gathering spaces like Bundle and Town Hall Theater Annex in use as places for community members. People want to be able to hang out in downtown and enjoy themselves in downtown without having to go to a bar or see music in downtown that starts before 10 o'clock at night. And so retaining these sort of spaces, that are maybe more of a nonprofit kind of a thing aren't a bad idea, just in terms of creating some events in downtown. It would be really great. And I'm stealing this idea from Mark Bradley when he was here. He said, Jen, I would just love to know that I could come into Middlebury any night of the week and there would be something for me to do. And somebody in Ferrisburg might just really like to know that they can make the commitment to drive south and find something here that will result in them eating here and shopping here and doing other things here. So this is our vision for retail in the future. Any thoughts on that?
Hey, Jen, so one thing I saw interesting in going through this, there's at least 3 places and maybe more that says bring the farmer's market to downtown.
Yeah.
It's something as easy as that, and something that everybody knows, and just comes up in at least 3 places.
Mm-hmm.
They are an organization that makes their own decisions, Dan. So I think we've made it pretty clear to them that we want them back down there. So now we just need to, once it's able to be done, we need to connect with them and see what are the impediments, why, if they choose not to, why.
Mm-hmm.
I would think all the downtown merchants would be heavily recruiting them to come back downtown, because it just brings shoppers to downtown.
One idea I really loved was the idea of having an all-season market behind the co-op if Watson Scott ever retires. I think that'd be a dandy place for a farmer's market. And Glenn Lauer indicated that it wouldn't hurt the co-op at all. It would actually help them. So that's a interesting complementary business. And if the farmer's market management isn't working out, maybe there's some way for the co-op to manage it in some way. Any other thoughts on this section? I'll hold you up. All right, tourism and hospitality. So the intro just raves about all the different things that we have going on here. This section talks a lot about promotion and marketing. I'm really excited that we applied for that grant. I think it'd be fun to hop into that and work with Karen and Fred and Rob and some of the local businesses to think about how we could promote everything that Middlebury has. Yeah, and so, you know, as we are asking people, like, what are your values? What do you love about downtown? Over and over again, we're getting this idea that that Middlebury is quaint and Middlebury is authentic, you know, authentic Vermont. And so we just really need to hone in on that as we're promoting this region to people outside the region. People have asked me, you know, post-COVID, are you trying to get some of these climate refugees to move to Middlebury? I think I'd like them to visit on the Amtrak, you know, and see where it goes from there. I think we have a lot to offer. Number 5 is bold. I don't know how you feel about that. Okay. 5 is bold. I don't know how you feel about that. Dan?
I feel pretty strongly about that. It was very interesting that came up. And the other part in that section, it says that hotels are lower than optimal occupancy, and part of it's due to the competition with Airbnb.
There you go. Yep. Good.
We've been pressing this with the state for a long time.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on this section? I'm running out of time. All right. Innovation and entrepreneurship. A lot of this would be done outside of the municipality by college alumni and local businesses. So I'm just going to let you read that section on your own. I'm really glad it's in the plan to give us something to think about. So land use and development, we've already talked about a bunch of this. This is the section where we talk about changing the zoning. This is the section where we talk about going after this state designation. This is where we talk about the need to add more density in our downtown. And this map is a super useful map in terms of being able to see areas in red that could be areas of infill development. These are opportunity areas. And the little numbers give you a little bit more information. Any one of these areas could be suitable for a master planning project. We could partner up with a developer and just try to think more about what could happen in any of these spots. And I would like to put the NDA designation in all these areas too, so that it was subject to those incentives. So going from there, this is the Bakery Lane redevelopment analysis for the EDI site. I'm just going to skip this for now because you can't talk about it if you haven't seen it. So I might actually recommend that the consultant put this after the illustrative plan for Bakery Lane. But yeah, these are the illustrative plans. And hopefully people saw these in the Planapalooza. These were definitely vetted at our public meetings quite a bit. We got a lot of, you know, feedback from people. This shows the municipal lot, the EDI site, if you will. And it shows it with the massing broken up into some different massing. So the developer contemplated 4 different scenarios for that site, from leaving it a surface parking to going to like a 6 or 7 story high-rise building. And this is scenario 2. So so it's pretty low density, and the massing is all broken up in different places. I say pretty low density. I mean, these are tall buildings, but people were fine with this. It's just a matter of figuring out whether a developer could afford to do any piece of this or not, or if they needed a much bigger mass of a building to make it all pencil out for them. This map is useful because it shows you how a parking garage, a 2-deck parking garage, is hidden right in the middle of these liner buildings all around. So in the illustration, the parking deck, you can barely see it, is behind these buildings. This map also shows the library addition, possibly, right? I mean, we don't know what it's going to look like, but he showed it just in case they wanted to think about that. So that's the Bakery Lane site. And then it shows the boardwalk, of course, and a newly developed Bakery Lane. Park Street, we went over. St. Mary's. I mean, it's a great vacant site right in the heart of our downtown. It would be a shame for it not to be used for some sort of dense residential purpose. The consultant had fun with this plan because he showed such an array of housing types. So he takes the original St. Mary's building and makes it a little larger. This is a possible daycare center. This is some other municipal use. This is a cottage court with tiny homes, a little cottage court, kind of like the Bristol co-housing development. These are some single family homes, small ones, single family homes, big ones, townhouses, right? And then this is like some sort of, it probably tells you in the key, 6-unit multifamily building. So this is all the different housing types that we're talking about all in one place. And it doesn't need to happen this way, but I sure do like how these streets lay out. So if someone does come in and develops a piece of it and wants to do it a little bit differently, I think they should at least try to use this master plan and respect the street layout that we've shown here. The street hooks up directly with Mill Street here. And then this is just the Shaw's Plaza. This is helpful because it shows that even in areas where we think there's nowhere to add development, there is. So that's the entrance to Shaw's. That's that little weird bus shelter thing, made over as like an actual commercial building. And then these are buildings that he's added here that go across the Vermont Federal Credit Union driveway. That big wide driveway actually accommodates this kind of development. So you could think about this being somewhere else. You could think about this being at the end of Exchange Street. If RK Miles, and I hope that doesn't happen, but if RK Miles ever decided to downsize their activities and they wanted to sell that weird kitchen store that they have across from the offices, this kind of development could occur in that corridor, and it could be the gateway coming into downtown from Exchange Street, So I think this is helpful in terms of showing how much cool stuff you could fit in a small place. Then Marble Works, this is just an idea for the Marble Works. I like this plan better than that one. It just shows how you can add a little, a few liner buildings and really change the character of this coming in and make it less of a big wide open parking lot and more of an intimate feel. And then, proposing some large apartment buildings with commercial underneath, looking over the falls, and changing this this rolling hill to somewhere that's shored up and a flat space where you could have a farmer's market or some events. So that's a lot of fun. So, because we had an economist on board and an urban designer on board, I really wanted them to go through the hard work of meeting with NextBridge. They met with John Dale. I was there. They met with the college and St. Mary's just to try to really figure out how some of these projects could happen in our downtown, and what constraints are on us. And so these pages here are an analysis of the Bakery Lane redevelopment. And I would say since we're over time right now, this seems like a really interesting thing to jump into when we come back at our next meeting. Kathleen or Brian, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's great, and gives everybody a chance now to absorb all that you've covered and think about the entire plan. I'm not sure everybody has had an opportunity to read through the entire plan yet. I do know that at least 3 of your planning commission committee members are on with us this evening, and I'd love to invite them in at least to take a bow for all the hard lift that you have all done. So if Barbara Saunders, Lucy Schumer, and Chris Robbins could join us, and if there's any others that have joined since I checked that would be great. But if they've got any comments that they would like to pass on to the select board, we'd love to hear it as well.
Jen, would you please take down the share screen?
Oh, so sorry.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi.
Thanks for all the work.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. They did have a lot of public input, and people had a good time coming to those meetings and sharing their ideas.
Jen, that was a really great presentation. Thank you so much for all the hard work you did and preparing that presentation. That was a really good summary of our work, so thank you.
I'm not, oh, there I am. I thought I might be. Yeah, it was one of the most exciting pieces of work I've been part of in my many years at the Planning Commission. And we were so lucky with who we hired and with Jen's stewardship of the process. And it's hard to imagine it now in our COVID world, how exciting it was just about 12 months ago to start this process and what fun it was. And anyway, it excites me all over again every time you run through it, Jen.
So ever since I was a little kid, I've been kind of resisting the suburbanization of older neighborhoods, you know, the big parking lots and setbacks and strip malls and things like that. And I've always been wanting something like what this plan shows, especially the neighborhood around St. Mary's. I think it could really be great, and it shows how you can really fit some more development into places that you have rather than spreading it out more and more in the outskirts. So I hope we can make this stuff happen.
So are there any comments or questions from the board? Nick?
Well, can you hear me actually with my this mask on?
Yes, we
Okay, good. I hope there's not too much background noise. You know, first, I think back, Jen, when you first mentioned the idea of this master plan, and the more you talked about it, the more intriguing it became to me. And I remember reading, I've read this thing about 6 times, I think, and the first time I read it, I thought, is this what we asked for? So I read it through again, and I says, maybe this is what we asked for. And by the third time, it was like, this is absolutely what we asked for. You know, I suddenly found myself getting drawn into those illustrations that were coming up and thinking, I've been in these type of places and I love them. You know, the quaint little side streets. It's very European-esque in many ways. One of the things that hit me really early on with the planners, the consultants, was how they talked about Middlebury downtown was almost 2 sections. It was the high street and then it was the part. In the way that they've integrated the idea that the main street is the traditional New England town, and then we could do some really great complementary contemporary things with the other areas. And I just found myself getting more and more excited about the possibility. So I thought, how do we get 20 developers in here and teams of architects now and make this all happen? Because there's so much great stuff. So I can't emphasize enough what a great job you did, what a great job the Planning Commission did pulling this through. And even in some preliminary conversations I've had on the side with architects and developers, get their feedback, and they all say this really looks like something that's very workable. It avoids being heavily prescriptive. It gets into a performance-based vision on what we're trying to achieve, and allows flexibility and adaptability for these design professionals to really come up with a good project that will fit with not just now, but I think in many, many years going forward. So deserve a lot of credit for that. And it also, the other thing I've heard commonly is this will help to reduce the risk, so that rather than spending a lot of money trying to go back and over and over again as a project is advancing, they can spend that money on the quality of the building. So that's great. I think the thing that really comes now is, well, you've got a lot of work in front of you, and I hope you're gonna be with us for like 150 years. But it's now time to go along and start maybe getting a beta test or two, and really get a chance to see how this works, where efficiencies are, where we've got it really right, where we need to tweak it. And so, and I'm going to trust you're going to be doing that. And I like it. I don't see anything that I would change. So if we were voting on it tonight, I'd say let's go for it, but we aren't yet. So, but again, thanks a lot. Great work.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so Jen, what's our next step on this? Just walk me through it again.
I figured that you'd want to take some time to read it and see if you had any other questions. So I was going to come back a second time on November 10th.
November 10th.
Yep, and ask for you to endorse it then. And I'll talk as long as you need me to. We can talk about that last little section, that the Bakery Lane redevelopment analysis, because that is kind of a next step in a way, you know.
Yep.
and then see where we're at.
Okay. I think from this, I speak for not just the select board, but for the town. Thank you all for leading what was truly a pretty darn cool effort. And you've come out with something that gives us a lot to think about of what our downtown can be. And it gives us a map for the next generation. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you on the 10th then.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Chris, we need to get Fred Kenny, and he's gonna give us the committee's final report from the Middlebury Economic Health Committee.
Okay, Fred should be coming in, and I just need one more change I need to make here.
Coming in, Fred?
Working on it. There we go.
There we go.
We're good now.
All right. So you're going to take the con and walk us through the Economic Health Committee's final report to the board, correct?
That is correct. So I need to share my screen. Let me just say that I was really impressed with the process to produce that downtown plan. And I really look forward to reading that in depth. That was a great presentation. A lot of parallels to what we heard in the Economic Health Committee. Share screen. All right, so hopefully you're seeing my screen at this point.
Yes.
Okay. Let me just dive right in. You've had a long agenda today. So just reporting back from the Middlebury Economic Health Committee. I'm going to start with some general information, then hit on the 3 critical factors that we are reporting back to you. And then also there were some specific requests that you asked us to look into, and I'm going to report on those as well. So generally, we had 9 members on the committee. There were 10, but one of the left town pretty quickly after he was appointed. So we ended up with 9. We had about 6 that were consistently active. We held 23 meetings between August 2019 and October 2019. I'm sorry, August 2018 through October 2019. We had about 86 non-member attendees at our meetings, including 20 folks who presented information to us. We also held a business roundtable that had about 42 attendees primarily from the downtown, but from throughout Middlebury. The committee did a SWOT analysis and then developed critical factors based on that analysis. And then our next step was going to be to develop detailed goals and objectives, but we stopped short of that because we felt it was difficult to do that without an expressed economic development vision for the town. And also the COVID pandemic changed the economic development landscape. A lot of the committee members were consumed either by response and recovery, like myself and Karen, or keeping their businesses viable. So critical factor number 1 is we would recommend that you develop an economic vision for the town, one that should be based on the town's strengths and distinguish Middlebury from other towns and galvanize investment in Middlebury's economy, and sort of serve as a guiding statement, like an elevator pitch for the development of further economic development goals, objectives, and action steps. we would suggest utilizing a neutral facilitator and a public engagement process to develop the vision, sort of like what was done with the downtown plan, but for the whole town. An example of that is something called slow democracy process. You can look at slowdemocracy.org, and they have a lot of information about how to do that type of thing in a community, engage the community. We also suggest establishing a permanent economic development oversight committee as part of that. Critical factor number 2 is to establish an entity to act on behalf of Middlebury's economic health and implement that the town's vision. We looked at several examples of how to do that. They're all listed in the report in Appendix 5. They all, work for the town that is, that we heard from. We heard from about 7 different towns, I think, with 7 different formats on how they accomplish economic development in their town. Some of them have been in municipal office, like Middlebury used to have, or a staff person. Some of them have an independent non-governmental organization, probably, or a nonprofit corporation, a local development corporation, or some of them have partnerships among existing entities to kind of like what Jennifer had suggested in their report, where there's a partnership of existing entities like us and the downtown organization to oversee economic development in the town. But key to any implementation of any of those, whichever one you pick, and the committee didn't settle on the best option for the town, just suggested what the different options are. But key to that successful implementation of that is a sustainable funding mechanism. We looked at a couple examples of how the other towns fund that. Obviously some do it through their budget, some do it with a local tax. Rutland happens to, they established a taxation of any new solar arrays that are within the town or on municipal property. And that's how they fund their economic development office and an economic development program as well. We also suggest that there's kind of 2 levels to it. That committee that we mentioned in critical factor number 1, to oversee things, or a person to oversee things that has, that is political in nature, could be a select board member, and that committee or person would oversee the entity or office or partnership or person that's acting as an economic development staff and ombudsman. So you have someone that has the town behind them to talk to businesses, meet with new businesses, and oversee what essentially is a staff, regardless, depending on how you set it up. So the report also includes a long list of what the committee thought would be appropriate duties for that person. It's a long list, and probably can't do all of that, but those are ideas about what that staff person would be responsible for. The third critical factor is to focus on maintaining and improving essential infrastructure and amenities to keep and attract businesses, families, and what is our fastest growing demographic, time-tested citizens or retirees or older citizens. Those include affordable workforce housing, as you heard about in the downtown plan. I totally support everything Jennifer said in her discussion of housing and development in general, about being the cost of doing a development and cost of building workforce housing. But that's an essential element, and I think the downtown plan addresses a lot of that. It has a lot of great ideas in there for that. Other things include amenities for kids and families. We heard a lot about experiential retail. I think that was mentioned in the downtown plan as well. Another element is affordable communications infrastructure, broadband, affordable and available broadband and internet access. And the report includes several more specific examples that I didn't advance there, that were suggested by participants in our meetings. A lot more specific examples of infrastructure, community and business infrastructure, and ideas along those lines. A lot of which I saw mentioned in the plan as well. So that's great. So those are the three high level critical factors that the committee discussed and is passing along to the select board. I think a lot of that parallels the downtown plan, and there's a lot of information there about a vision for the downtown. A lot of that could be extended to the whole town. It would probably need, you need more discussion about what the vision is for the whole town, because you have different areas that need different approaches. But the method that was put towards the downtown plan is a good model for doing that for the whole town. So you also asked us to look at two very specific things, TIF and some ways to use the money that's left in two funds. So on TIF, this goes on for a few slides, so I apologize for that. But on TIF, you asked us for a basic analysis of the economic viability of TIF and or other means to support infrastructure improvements in the downtown. As the report states, we don't really think it was possible for the committee or anyone really to analyze the economic viability of a TIF district without having the data supporting both sides of the basic TIF proposition. And that is, what is the development project? How much incremental property tax revenue will it generate? And then the other side of the coin is what public infrastructure is required to get that development and how much will it cost? So unless you have a project and you know those elements, it's really hard to analyze viability. If the project the last project that Jennifer spoke about, gets a little further, you might have those cost estimates and could do that proposition, do that analysis to check viability. But really without those, it's not possible to determine viability. But if with a project like that, if the municipality is getting to the point in the development of a major economic development project that requires public infrastructure, and it's important to keep in mind that that's what TIF is about. It's developing public infrastructure for private development. But even before determining viability and before you even look at whether eligibility criteria can be met, there's a couple of other things you need to consider. So it's a story of, if you're going to go down that road, go down it very cautiously. So the first is, does the cost of the infrastructure exceed the town's capacity to consider regular bonding, bonding without using the TIF tool and utilizing capital budget expenditures and or seeking state and federal grants and loans. So you can do all those in a combination and not have to do TIF. And that's kind of the underlying question that you're asked in a TIF application to answer the but-for question is, except for TIF, can you do this or not? And you could do it with these other methods, regular bonding and or capital budget expenditures and or state and federal grants and loans combined. So that's the first question. And the second one is, you really need to do a cost benefit analysis of some less tangible but really important factors involved in the TIF proposition. And we walk through those in the report. Quickly, those include sunken costs and timing. The legislature is only allowing 4 more TIF districts to be approved. So once you go through what is a very long process to establish a TIF district and go through the whole local public approval process they have to go through, develop a plan, and then you're ready to present your TIF plan to the state, are there going to be any left, any slots, so to speak, left for approval? And you've sunk a lot of cost and spent a lot of time doing that process. And if you can't proceed, you've spent a lot of money. The second is staff capacity. There's a lot of staff time, both preparing for local approval and state approval. And then after, if you do get approved, there's a lot of staff time in post-approval tracking and reporting for TIF districts. Third is a project champion. You really need to have one. Could be a developer, could be a select person, or just somebody in the community that really believes in the development that's going to occur and using TIF to get it. But you really need a project champion to move everything along and get it through the finish line. And kind of related to that is sustained political will. You need a select board and others that support what you're trying to do. If you're trying to carry out that downtown plan, that's great. Is TIF the right way to do it? And keep in mind that TIF is a 20-year proposition, so the lifetime of a TIF district spans several election cycles. Very importantly, are the risks. You need to be able to mitigate or eliminate the risks. The biggest one being that the town commits to some public infrastructure and actually goes into debt for that infrastructure, and then the development doesn't occur or occurs more slowly than planned. So you have a period where you have to cover that debt somehow. So that's probably the primary risk that you need to think about. Just think of the holes right now in Newport and Burlington, and that's partially what that's about. I mean, Newport doesn't have a TIF district, but if they did, they would have some infrastructure built and no development occurred. So, and that is an actual occurrence in Burlington right now. The other two are less of a risk, but need to be managed and could be managed, but they are a risk. You got to be able to, if the redevelopment means tearing down some properties to get the new properties, you've reduced your original taxable value, and the town has to make that up to the state. And then I've seen TIF districts where too many non-taxable properties got included in the development, or after the development happened, properties got converted to be non-taxable. They got purchased by a nonprofit that doesn't pay property taxes. So again, those are less of a risk. The first one's the biggest one, but nevertheless, they are risks. And then finally, again, the eligibility criteria be met and maintained. That you not only have to meet them at the application, you have to maintain them. For example, one of them is, if you say in your application that you're going to build affordable housing or make transportation improvements, you can't just say that to get approved. You actually have to do it, and the housing has to get built. So the town needs to carefully look well beyond the application approval criteria and conduct that difficult cost benefit analysis of all those factors, and make sure the risk can be mitigated, and make sure that the benefits outweigh the costs. The sense of the committee was that there is not a likely development project or projects requiring the scope of infrastructure, a big enough infrastructure need that would make viable use of the TIF tool, or that would pass that cost benefit analysis. It's more likely that for any project that requires public infrastructure proceed, the project could be accomplished through private-public partnership to build the infrastructure, and you might be able to just use traditional bond debt for that. But and if the town does, if the town does decide to pursue TIF, I would suggest a conversation with some officials in Milton or St. Albans or one of the other towns that's been through it. They have the experience of going through the process, including the audits and the other scrutiny that occurs. So that was my long-winded TIF report in the TIF section of the report. Just a full disclosure, I don't know how many of you know my background, but I worked for the state for 15 years before this job and ran the TIF program for the state for 15 years. So I have a little bit of experience with it. So the last thing we're going to report on is the second more specific thing you asked us to look into, and that's the use of the remaining MBDF fund and the remaining Vermont Community Development Program grant funds that you have. We heard from several municipal officials regarding, we heard from several municipal officials regarding some successful programs that they've run. And an example of that is the Rutland Development Authority Business Incentive and Assistance Program. That's the one that I mentioned, that not only do they partially fund their economic development office, but they run this program through this, they fund it through their city's solar tax. That's the sustainable funding that they've identified and put in place to fund economic development, basically. It's a fairly new program, so they weren't able to give us a lot of data on how successful it has been to date, but they've helped several businesses in downtown Rutland with that program. Another idea that we considered and heard about was to establish a revolving loan fund with the funds. And you requested and ACEDC provided a white paper on various revolving loan fund options at the August 11th select board meeting. So I won't go into that. You already have that. But given the limitation on the amount of funds, I believe it's only like $140,000, $160,000, and that there isn't a sustainable source for that money. It's kind of static. It's there. What do you do with it? That the committee's recommendation is to invest it in an immediate need in a way that leverages other funds. And one such need that we identified, and if you look in back at critical factor number 3, we talked about broadband and communications improvements. So that money could be put towards the improvement of high-speed broadband. There's been a communications union district established for Addison County that Middlebury is part of. And those funds could be used to, there's an opportunity to invest in that. And I'm working with Adam to look at how funds from sources like Middlebury, town of Middlebury, could be accessed and then used to leverage state and federal grants and loans to implement the CUD's plan, which they're working on right now, to address the availability and affordability of high-speed broadband in Addison County. So with that, I will unshare. Do it, yeah. And I guess whatever you want to do next, I assume you want to take questions. So there might be some committee members with me. I'm not sure who made it.
Ben Kelly's on. If Chris, if you could accept him into the meeting, see if Ben has anything that he would like to add before we open it up for questions on the board. Evening, Ben.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having us. Not a whole lot to add from what Fred said. I think the general thrust of where we started with the critical control point number 1 there, critical factor number 1, is that after spending 2-3 months looking at the issues, that first needing an economic vision elevator pitch for the town that could really represent the town's vision for economic development was really needed as the guiding force and principle to tackle all the other pieces of it. And again, once that vision is created, need a champion to spearhead that, and that's where the other factors come into place. I think there's difference of opinion, and it's really up to the select board in town to decide how to go about that. You know, whether the ambassador is town paid or a nonprofit partnership like Fred described. Really, someone needs to be doing this every day, full time, and not ad hoc committee style with volunteers to really get that sustained effort in economic development that the town really needs. But other than that, happy to answer questions, but nothing else in general to add.
Okay, thank you, Ben. Questions from the board? Nick?
First of all, Fred, am I a time-tested citizen?
I'll let you make that determination. I'm on the verge.
And yeah, we still look good, Fred. But anyway, no, thanks. The timing on this is actually excellent. I haven't read this thing through 6 times yet. I only read it once today, but you're right. There's a lot of synergy between what you've done here and what that town plan did. And economic constraint is kind of the core of it to allow us to do a lot of other things. So it's good. I was actually, previous to this report, I thought it was a big fan of a TIF district. And now as I've gone through it, I'm thinking, I'm not at all, but I'm going to go through that in greater detail to understand better. But one of the things that was very helpful, I found for myself, was the way you and your team did the pluses and minuses. That broke it down into a way that one could look at them and relatively quick gain objectivity as to the best way to go. So thanks for the effort. This is a chance to digest this one as well. And I know we'll be in continued communication as we try to figure what the next step is. And hopefully we could have times even when the group could get together again as we have some questions, and we could have a roundtable to figure out ultimately what the best direction to go is. So again, thanks for everything.
Our pleasure. So are Mary or Karen on? No?
No, Karen wasn't going to be here. She had something going on.
Yeah, family thing.
Yeah, even Mary said it was iffy for her to be on.
Any other questions of the board? So this is the report out to the board, and we would accept the committee's report if you're okay with that. And so I would seek a motion then.
I would make a motion to accept the report of the Economic Committee.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other comments or questions before we vote? All in favor, signify with a thumbs up. So Fred and Ben, you're with us in Farhad. You're with us this evening, and thank you. I know there have been a number of obstacles to the discussion going smoothly, not the least of which is this last year of COVID as you're trying to wrap things up. I know I heard from some of the members feeling it was futile at times, but I think there were a couple things that came out of this that will help us very specifically help us in guiding our future efforts. And so I don't think it was a wasted effort, and I do appreciate you guys doing the heavy lift, especially the group that was the core and was there really focused on trying to come up with some ideas for the town. So I think we've got to follow that 3-step, the early one, like Ben just put an exclamation point on. We need a vision, and so just kind of laying that 3-step process out for us, I think at least focuses us, and we can hopefully make some progress. So thanks for everything.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank the members of the committee that, especially those that, showed up and helped and worked. And it was great to work with him. I really miss meeting with people in person. It's great to see you all again.
Thank you, Fred, for leading us. It was fun working with you. And Ben, you were there until the end. Mary and but not everybody, but most of us stuck together until the end, including John Frieden, I would say.
All right, thank you. And so we accept that as a board, and now I think the ball's back in our court to define a vision. So with that, I'll say good night to you, Fred, and good night, Ben. And board, we're at the end of the meeting for board member concerns. Farhad.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Heather?
I would just say thank you to those that provide Ideal Middlebury. I'm sorry, Emily Josselson and Sue Ritter for the reading list they provided. I know I made that suggestion last time, and I appreciate them making the effort on that. So just big thank you. And I think that's it. I'm good.
Okay, thanks, Heather. Nick?
Obviously I could make the first part of the meeting and regret that, but things are beyond my control today. But I'm really glad I was here for the second. I think that was some of the best discussion and presentations on where do we go, post-COVID and beyond that we've had in a long time. So those two sessions were excellent. And I'm really looking forward to, starting figuring out the details of it and figuring out what we can do as a town to make this future happen. And I'm very confident we will. I also see the strength of the people who were behind it, and it gives me a lot of trust and hope. So thanks. But other than that, no, nothing new.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Lindsay?
Yeah, I was just going to say, a couple of us have been able to help out a little bit with the voting process, and just to reiterate, as we do every time this comes around, it's such a pleasure to vote in Vermont and in Middlebury, and specifically, and B, I know there's been a lot of stress around voting this year, and to be able to be in the room and see the process of having the early votes being counted, and to see how thoroughly professional and how much attention there is to detail, and to just know that we can trust that our votes are taken care of, I think is reassuring in these times. So kudos to Anne and everybody in the town clerk's office, because I'm sure they're cranking really high right now, and they're doing a wonderful job.
Good comments, Lindsay. Dan?
Just say that it was really interesting tonight. I really appreciated that. I highly recommend you not try to read both those documents all in one day, which I did. But I actually learned a lot more tonight going through them again, and I did not pay Jen for my comment on Airbnb. I did not get her to prod me on that one, so that was completely unsolicited. But it was a fun meeting. Good, thank you.
Okay. Kathleen, when do we meet next? The 10th?
November 10th.
November 10th, okay, and we're gonna have, so if you get a chance, go back through that one more time, because we're gonna try to finalize the master plan, the downtown master plan on the 10th, okay? And I hope you enjoy your Halloweens, especially those of you with younger children. There's lots of good information out there. Chief's putting out through the stuff, and some pretty cool ideas on ways to keep it safe and be smart. And so with that, I hope everybody enjoys the Halloween festivities in your own way, and have a nice evening. And I'll look for a motion then to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Favor? All right. We'll adjourn at 8:38. Is that 8 minutes late, Kathleen?
Well
Thank
done.
you. Thank you for the early start. I think it worked out good for this type of meeting. So I really appreciate that accommodation.
Based on my experience today, Brian, 8 minutes late is actually pretty good.
I don't think you guys would want to see me in an hour if we were still having this conversation.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a
Night,
good night,
everyone.
folks.
Good night, everybody.
Stay well.